All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. With that, I'm excited to introduce our speaker today. Tristan Chambers has his own esports company. And one of the reasons I got into business, because it always intrigues me on how many different ways there are to make money. Some of them which we've never even imagined.
Yeah.
And if you would have told me a few years ago that you could make money by watching people play video games, I would have said you were nuts. I would have said, no, come on, please.
There's still people to this day who say that.
Yep. But Tristan is here, and we were talking beforehand, and it's really intriguing to me, and he's going to touch on this, I'm sure, but there are some very serious business people getting into buying esports teams. Robert Kraft, he mentioned, he owns the New England Patriots, has made a major investment in esports. Whether I understand it at my age or not, it doesn't matter because it's a thing, and it's a growing thing. And so I'm excited to hear about the whole industry. And Tristan, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, first off, thank you guys for coming out. I know the weather's not the best and the brightest that it could be. To kind of give you guys an idea of esports as an industry, obviously it's competitive video gaming, which as of late 2019 is now a $1 billion industry. Across a multitude of different verticals, that's advertising, sponsorships, investments, a whole slew of other things. And as Steve was alluding to, there's over the last couple of years been a lot of people who have gotten into esports from traditional sports and media, and as well from the business world. That being Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, Comcast, and a couple of other media giants have gotten into it. I know the William Morris Endeavor Group, they did a joint broadcast deal with Turner Sports to do a competitive esports league that was televised on TBS a couple years ago, and it's been a crazy ride. Those are just some of the few kind of crazy things, and I guess by a show of hands, I want to kind of see who has maybe heard of it, or has heard of esports. Okay, so definitely a lot more than probably what I was expecting. So, but yeah, so kind of the industry is still very much in its infancy, and there's a lot of things that are different with it compared to that of traditional sports. We've only been around the industry has really been what it has been for 7 years, and now it's the single largest sport across not just North America but most likely the world. I did some research a while back in 2018. Riot Games held their League of Legends World Championships, and it actually garnered 200 million peak viewers throughout the entire championship, which was about 50 million more viewers than that year's Super Bowl. Also in 2014 or 2015, they held the same World Championships actually at the Staples Center, sold out that venue in 30 minutes, breaking a Taylor Swift record for the venue, as well as some other interesting things. I know news publications out there like Sports Business Journal, as well as ESPN now has their own esports news division that they syndicate news and content and all the fun stuff that you could. And it's definitely, again, really interesting. If any of you have heard of the esports franchises that are going around these days, those are, at least going for the Overwatch League, which is one of the premier ones, a buy-in for that alone is just $60 million. That's before operating costs and signing players and all the different benefits. And so it's definitely a very interesting time. My journey in esports really started in 2012. I had kind of gotten into YouTube and content creation and built my own personal brand, and within about a year later from doing that, got into the esports industry, built my own team while working with some others on my personal side, and that organization I still run and own to this day solely by myself, which is kind of surreal still to this point, because solely funded, and the things that we have achieved in 7 years. Myself and all the people that at least work on that team, I think a lot of us are truly astonished at what we've done. And in that time as well, I've worked with companies such as Scale Lab, which is a media network, or in the eyes of YouTube, a multi-channel thing where they work with different what most people these days call influencers on their personal brands and things like that. And then also I've had some other partnerships and business relationships with companies in the gaming space, the entertainment space. Most recently, I was accepted into a street team for a major record label out in Los Angeles, that being Fearless Records, which I'm very happy. I mean, there's hundreds of members in that, but the fact that they considered me to be a part of that is truly humbling. And in 2016, 2017, I obviously saw that the industry was growing, and wanted to find a way to compete in that. When you see $5 million going here, $10 million going here, or Nike jumping into the mix, and sometimes major corporate partnerships or M&As. It's always a fascinating time. So I created Spark Esports and Entertainment, which was at first a hub for smaller organizations to kind of work with, and we'd help with content and operations and whatever you may need in order to compete with those bigger organizations that generate and receive those tens of millions of dollars. And then slowly after 2018, I transitioned the company into its current model, which is a diversified esports and entertainment holding company, essentially. So we own a multitude of different brands, that being my own personal esports organization. We have a media arm called Exonium Media Group that can do traditional sports events, concerts, online content, so that's your documentary shows, your original web series, podcasts, whatever that may be. Obviously we can also do other things depending on the industry that's needed. We run a couple of online tournament leagues. One is a Legacy Pro League that at least I tried to get off the ground. And first time trying to do an online league that was a city-based franchise, and it was kind of interesting. I had 10 to 12 people from all over North America, and I think maybe one or two European teams that were highly interested and got on board with that. And then in 2019, I added 2 or 3 new companies brands to the mix. That being Replay, which is kind of a business development arm of Spark. So that's for the teams that we don't necessarily want to kind of have it in a strategic oversight role, but what we do is we still help them at a very low cost with whatever they need, because we understand those smaller organizations don't always have the capital to do that. And then another one being Creators Page, which is now it's a media entertainment and talent management brand. So that's for individual content creators like myself, who are able to find businesses and companies that they want to partner with, and how to teach them how to promote their brand, and the tools of the trade when it comes to video content, because social media is literally the single greatest weapon that anyone can use to promote their own brand and to grow a following, depending on what platform and how they do that. And we teach them the tools of the trade to do so. So that's for the majority of what Spark does and what myself does. I kind of run, depending on the brand and the duties that I have to do every day. It could be from on the gaming side of things with the esports team, signing players, negotiating with sponsors, dealing with apparel and product distribution, content creation and production and all that fun jazz, and everything else that kind of goes with being an owner and public figurehead of a growing esports brand still to this day. So, obviously, that's kind of the need to know about me and everything that I kind of do, and a little bit about the industry that I work in.
I'm sure I've got a ton of questions for Tristan. What do you want to know that you don't understand about esports? The one thing I asked him beforehand, I want to know how the money flows. So,
yeah.
As a team owner, you own a team.
Yeah.
Explain to us how the money flows, how you make money, I'm even interested. Okay, we mentioned Robert Kraft. He owns the New England Patriots. Okay, they have an annual draft every year where they can draft new players, they can trade players. How do you get players for your team? How do they make money? How do you make money?
So, I guess that's a twofold question. So, for smaller or what the industry classifies as like tier 2 organizations, the way we do it is, occasionally we do scouting and stuff like that. If there's a game that I really like or that I know our fan base has a lot of interest in wanting to see us go back to those games or go into a certain game, part of my job is to work with the staff members that I have under the esports team and say, okay, let's go find some players. Occasionally we'll get like an email or two or something, or I may know someone from a past experience, playing for us that will say, well, hey, I can put a feeler out, and occasionally that really does work. And we've been able to field some really good teams out of that. For those bigger organizations, like the ones in franchise leagues, they definitely have that same model compared to like the NBA and the NFL draft, where you can sign players and they have academy teams so that you can bring them up and whatever it may be. I know with the upcoming Call of Duty League that starts actually tomorrow, what they did was, there's a total of 10 players, 5 starting, and then 5 substitute or other roles that fit for players. And so it really just depends on everything. But there is the signings, tradings, drafts. Some have drafts, but it's definitely an interesting thing. I never really thought franchise leagues would happen, and over the years, it's slowly changed my mind that some are headed in the right direction.
If I'm a top, let's say I play Call of Duty,
yes.
I'm just an absolute stud at Call of Duty.
Yes.
and let's say I'm a top 10% in the world type player. What kind of money could I realistically make playing video games?
Honestly, a lot of those contracts that kind of dictate the salaries of those types of players are generally confidential. I mean, it's very rare when you hear something flow out of an organization about how much money a player is getting, but I would imagine in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are people who are X game medalists who are video game players. There are people who literally are world champions at what they do, have garnered significant followings for their own personal brands. One of my mentors in the space is a guy named Matthew Hager. Most people in the gaming space know him as Nadeshot, and he runs an esports company called 100 Thieves, which is funded by the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sequoia Capital, LVMH, the Louis Vuitton company, and he himself was a professional Call of Duty player, X Game medalist, Red Bull signed athlete at one point in time. So there's definitely a lot of benefits. I would say that from what I personally know publicly, the highest contract per year for a player is $2.5 million. That's to a League of Legends Korean player known as Faker, who's arguably probably one of the best, if not the greatest, esports player of all time. Led a team called SK Telecom to the League of Legends World Championships multiple years, and I think is either a 2 or a 3-time world champion in that sport.
If you follow the New England Patriots, you can place bets on them.
Yes.
Is there betting on esports?
Yes, there's definitely some. A lot of those, there's definitely some out there. I know there's a couple companies that what they do is more like in-game or their own form of points or whatever, and then those could attribute to prizes or whatever. But there are some out there that do handle esports betting, and it's a kind of new concept. So that that's something that I'm pretty sure someone in the industry is working on. Myself, I haven't seen it too utilized, but I think there's a lot of leaps and bounds people have to go through to get the things to work the right way.
How long does a career last for
So a career, some players have been around for 10 years. Those are like still players in like Call of Duty. One player is Seth Scump Abner, who played for a team known as Optic Gaming, now plays for a different team under the Call of Duty franchise league. I know he's been in the scene since 2010 as a competitive player. Depending on the game though, like League of Legends, the span could be 3 to 5, maybe 7 years. There are Counter-Strike players that go back all the way to, I want to say, the early 2000s when Counter-Strike in its original form of 1.6 kind of started. So it depends on the game and I would say the physical training and regiment that those players have gone through, or if they've experienced any injuries or whatever it may be.
So their injuries are the type of carpal tunnel?
Yeah, it can be carpal tunnel. It can be other types of injuries. There's a lot of different things when it comes down to it. Carpal tunnel is definitely one of the main ones that I've seen over the years, kind of at times sideline a career or maybe make a player a little bit more cautious, but I'm sure there's been some far more severe ones out there.
So you mentioned a number of different companies underneath your
Yes.
umbrella. How do you determine when to set up a new company, and how much research can you do to know that you can monetize those services? Because this is obviously, all of this is very new.
Yes.
And it keeps evolving. How do you keep evolving with everything?
Yeah.
And knowing when to jump in and provide that service?
So a lot of the times when it comes to the esports team, I look at a lot of our competitors and say, okay, what are our competitors doing? And then how can we kind of put our own style on that? Like, with merchandise and apparel, teams have their own style, their own things. And we kind of take a look and say, okay, if this is where the industry is as a whole, let's go like light years away from everyone else. We are working, at least myself, currently I'm in the process of getting a brand new apparel company for my team, and I'm going through the process of what do I want jersey designs and jackets and dog tags and our limited apparel collections that we want to distribute out. What do those look like? What's the vision behind all those? Because I tend with the limited collections, I want every piece of that one design on a shirt to mean something, not just words and letters on something, or like an image that someone could resonate with, but more or less like what, kind of symbol, or what kind of feel it brings to the table. When it comes to really other areas, looking into games, content creators, sponsors, a lot of the times it's on the sponsorship side, like there are teams that, there are companies that I've wanted to work with for years and years and years, have been denied, until very recently. And so, when I get those companies, it's kind of like a sign of pride and great work for myself and for everyone on board, because it's not just, me building this brand, it's a lot of other people and a lot of other moving parts. When it comes to the different companies, it's a lot of the times like what I personally feel is evolving out there. With the entertainment arm that I have, that being Exania, I had always loved watching online content. Since I was a kid, I watched online web shows like Lonely Girl 15, and some other shows out there. And so, that was always something I really wanted to get into, and currently that's where a lot of the original web series content is being done, and that's a whole intricate part to itself. But also, I've just been a big music lover, so then that's where if a band comes through the link, and most times myself I'll do is I'll buy tickets or a VIP pass or whatever, go out to them, and then if a band or a label feels like reaching out, then they're able to work with us to get that content. A lot of the times though, like that content will end up on my personal channels, as maybe a event recap or a video blog or something of that nature. And those are all carefully crafted. It takes days, weeks, sometimes months to make sure that things are done the right way. So it really depends on a multitude of factors for at least myself.
So it's fun. So is a lot of your monetizing through subscriptions?
A lot of monetization on the esports side of things is through the apparel sponsorships, prize sharing, with teams. So, and then, as well, we're looking at other ways that we could monetize our fan base and, our offerings. That being through, again, original content, how do we, carefully craft content that resonates with people, but also still holds to the values and the culture that myself and others have carefully crafted over the years with the esports team, and that's also the same for the entertainment arm, for all the other companies under the umbrella. But some of the other ones are definitely, yes, like subscription based, where it's like for the business development thing, we'll package like a bunch of things, again, at a very low cost, and be like, look, as we'll work with you as much as we can. I understand, as someone who started out running an esports team that didn't have a lot of money, I understand that it's difficult. So I try to work with people as much as I can. Sometimes, I give people a free ride and say like, hey, I really believe in this brand. If you stick with us in the long term, then we're willing to help you out. And so I think that things have generally very well worked out for us.
What games are emerging that you're excited about in like the last couple of years?
So Overwatch was definitely a game that a lot of people were anticipating. And I was very optimistic for that. I have some personal resentment towards the developer of that game, because they did some unfair, biased actions towards my team that cost us and cost some players their careers, because they valued TV ratings over other wanting to grow the scene. So that's a bittersweet thing. I've seen some games, like sports games, FIFA, Madden, the NBA has a league of its own, again, where each individual, basketball franchise, like the Golden State Warriors have one, the Cleveland Cavaliers have one. I actually talked to their director of Esports actually a couple of days ago for a podcast where they're opening gaming centers and these massive initiatives to really do a lot of different things. So that's always something that I'm happy to see. There's a couple of games occasionally that come out of the woodwork that you would never think is an esports style, like Clash Royale. Actually had a world championship in China, and actually there was a kid from this city who actually won that event.
From where?
From here in Lincoln.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I actually got to talk to him over the phone one day, and I said, congratulations, like that must be surreal. Like you're a kid in high school making thousands of dollars, going to all these different organizations at a time, and like you traveled the world and just won a world championship. There's racing games out there that people have through customization put sponsor logos and their team's logo on, and that to me was a complete, like, that makes no sense, but to each their own. There's a multitude of games that have tried to do stuff, and it's always interesting. I welcome it personally, as long as people understand the culture of each individual game. That's something that has to be carefully crafted.
Last question.
Two more questions.
There's a lot of questions.
Two more quick questions.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a mental picture
Yes.
on your business. How many other sub-businesses are under your corporate, and then how many employees do you have?
So in the umbrella, there's currently I want to say 5 as of right now. There's always different things that I look to do, or a team here and there that I may say, look, let's do a strategic oversight agreement where I make it clear no ownership changes, no equity changes, but we kind of act as a big brother and want to help those teams and maybe those brands or whatever it may be. And then, under that, at least on the esports side, like there's, at least for my team, there's 8 or 9 different guys who, dabble in a multitude of things. So that may be operations, marketing, talent acquisitions. At times we've had sponsorship directors of esports, and, myself, I take on a role as not only the owner and CEO, but as well a content creator, and then, kind of, in a way, a strategic officer. So with esports, there's a multitude of different positions that you can do. With the other things, a lot of the times it's with the entertainment arm or other things, it's myself mainly, and then like if there's a freelance guy out there that I really see as growing, I'll say, hey, if I have an event that's coming up or something, like, hey, I'll reach out to you, be like, can we work a deal out for this? Maybe a sports event is coming up, and I want to have someone there, doing things for us, and that's when those would come into play. But typically, I think it's a lot better when it's myself, because I think no one probably has the same vision and passion as the person who creates it and kind of is trying to build a culture that is obviously changing. The music industry is always changing. The entertainment landscape is always changing. So
they're basically independent operators who collaborate under your organization, or how does that work? I mean, they sponsor themselves through subscriptions and other things?
Yeah, so...
you don't pay a salary is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So when it comes down to it, each one of our brands can be complementary. So, if the esports team needs to do some content, that's again where, myself and any freelance person that I may have working with us or that we may seek to do that. With the tournament leagues, that's where we could get academy level or your growing players and try to kind of help build something for the content entertainment group creators page. That's where individual content creators inside of the organization or even outside of the entire umbrella can really be a part of and have a collaborative effort again, with each other if they want to do stream marathons, if they want to, promote each other's content, things like that. So it's really interesting. Again, there's multiple avenues and ways that you can make money, and there's still probably some that haven't even been explored as much. There's a lot of companies like Immortals Gaming Club, which is even invested into by AEG and Meg Whitman, the now CEO of a platform called Quibi. They have this family brand strategy where they have teams in Overwatch and League of Legends, and now a team that I grew up loving, that being Optic Gaming, which is very, the pieces of what it was isn't there anymore. And so it's definitely an interesting look, I would say, into how things are done.
What's the easiest way to find content? What are the best platforms to see?
So a lot of the times, it depends on what your strategy and how you implement content. A lot of the times, with YouTube, I've carefully looked at like competitors and brand, teams that I very much like, and I'm like, okay, I like how they maybe did this style, how maybe they incorporated graphics, maybe how they did B-roll footage, maybe how they did a sponsorship deliverable, and then I try to find again our own way to kind of not necessarily be influenced by that, but give our own style on that. So that's kind of how things are done.
I'm sorry, like if I wanted to watch something,
Yeah.
Where would I go?
So YouTube is definitely a platform that you could go to watch things. Twitch is kind of one of the standing bears in the gaming video streaming space, which they're owned by Amazon these days. Mixer, which is owned by Microsoft, they acquired a guy named Tyler Blevins, known as Ninja, for tens of millions of dollars as an individual creator, and I know they've done a couple of other creator acquisitions as well. Facebook has a live streaming platform. YouTube has its own, where they've even signed exclusive creators. Sometimes I've seen people do Instagram TV, Snapchat, Twitter is a place where, for your content that I guess isn't necessarily copyrighted or, things of that nature, you'd put it on there. So if it's highlights, from scrims or matches as they're going on, then you would see those on like Twitter and, eventually on the other platforms.
Unfortunately, we have got to cut this off. I think we could have gone another hour with questions, I really do. So we hit on a very intriguing topic, that's for sure. Tristan showed me his business plan too before he started today, and it's very impressive. So this is serious stuff.
And I do have copies if like anyone does want to take a look and kind of understand how things work and what each a brand kind of does a little bit more, and our services again aren't just specific to esports and entertainment, but they can work in retail and commercial industries.
So Tristan, thanks again for being here. For the thank you, we would like to give you a Focus Sweet mug, and I know you don't drink coffee, but you can pour energy drinks.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
so Thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. If you have more questions that we couldn't get to, please come up and ask Tristan. Hopefully he can hang around for a while. You can ask him questions one-on-one. If you're not getting our newsletter, please give me your business card and I'll get you signed up for that. No need to run off into the snow. Hang around here as long as you like. Meet somebody new. Walk around the Focus Suite, see the businesses we've got here, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
And then for anyone who wants a business card, there's some over by the donuts and everything. But yeah, again, if any of you, have questions, don't feel afraid to ask. Steve, thank you again for allowing me to come and talk about this industry I really deeply care about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.